conversation with Balaji Subramanian. He's the Vice President of Research at IIFL Securities, who is joining us right now. Balaji, good morning. Thank you so much for joining in and taking the time out. First, let me come to the issue with Vodafone Idea. With the update from the Supreme Court around the AGR, and then, of course, yesterday we have a small positive update. But in the long run, I reckon that the factor which will weigh the most on Vodafone Idea is the AGR dues. What is your assessment on this particular stock as of now?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. As far as Vodafone Idea's recovery is concerned, there were a number of things that needed to fall into place. The first thing was the fundraise. On that count, we are somewhere halfway there, because the reason I say we are halfway there is because while the company has managed to raise equity funding to the tune of 24,000 crores, they are in the middle of the debt raise, which would be another 25,000 crores. And on top of that, they are also looking at non-fund based exposure of another 10,000 crores. So we are somewhere there as far as the progress on the fundraising is concerned. The second aspect is the tariff increase, or rather, multiple rounds of tariff increase. When I say multiple rounds, I look at 2 or 3 rounds of tariff increase. There, the good news is that we have had 1 round of tariff increase as expected. So there, things seem to be progressing along expected lines. The third one was the potential relief on the AGR dues. So the total AGR dues of the company are to the tune of 70,000 crore rupees. And the hope was that if the Supreme Court admitted the curative petition and allowed the DOT to rectify the calculation errors, that would have resulted in about 50% relief approximately. But that doesn't look like coming through, at least as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. I think we have heard the last word from them. Yesterday on the investor call by the Vodafone management, the management was alluding to a number of mechanisms, stroke actions which the government can take from their side. Now, the company did not go into the specifics as to what exactly the government can do, but at least they seemed hopeful that something positive will come out of that. But we'll have to see, because I don't know how much leeway the government has got, because the Supreme Court in its original AGR order had clearly said that there can be no reassessment of the dues. So my sense is that something like the extension of a moratorium, which will give some sort of a cash flow relief for Vodafone Idea for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, depending on what is the moratorium extension from the government. I would think, that is something which is under the government's control. And of course, the other option would be for the government to convert more of these dues into equity. Of course, the trade-off here is that while that would stabilize Vodafone Idea as a company, that would also mean that the existing shareholders stand to get diluted significantly. So my overall take is that the company should keep operating as a going concern, but the big challenge is, the potential dilution which the existing shareholders will end up seeing at some point in time.
Right. Balaji, come in on the implications for Indus Tower as well, right? Because, well, prima facie, it may be that Indus Tower could potentially be a beneficiary, but that isn't the case. And in fact, that's also taken a hit here because we're expecting more gains from Airtel now, even as it expands. What is your view for Indus Tower overall, and how does this AGR thing play out for Indus Towers?
As far as Indus Towers is concerned, it would be a play on Vodafone's proposed network expansion. So all this fundraise is entirely going towards network expansion, be it in the form of 4G coverage, 5G coverage, 4G capacity. So all these are going to go towards network build outs. So as I said, almost 50% of the funds required for the network rollout is already in the bag. The remaining 50% is where there is some degree of uncertainty because as I said earlier, the company is in the midst of raising debt funds. And yesterday on the call, the management was categorical in saying that the AGR verdict should not result in a setback in the debt raising process. And they went on to add that the debt funding should be completed in the next 7 to 8 weeks. So if the debt raising part goes without any hitches, then I would believe that Indus should do well, because and Vodafone also said that the key priority in terms of their capex program would be the expansion of 4G coverage, and that would mean that would mean extra tenancies on Indus's existing towers, which would be a significant positive for Indus. But of course, the key uncertainty here is that if the fundraising of Vodafone Idea gets delayed, then that uncertainty can weigh on Indus's stock, because one, that would mean that whatever 5,000 crores overdues that Indus has to get from Vodafone Idea, that may not be realized soon. And number two, if Vodafone Idea were to go ahead with a curtailed capex program, then that would mean that the tenancy increase for Indus may not be as high as what everyone was envisaging maybe a year back, maybe a week back before we heard the AGR petition outcome.
Balaji, not sure if you already mentioned this, but if the market is expecting another tariff hike over the next 1 to 2 years to the tune of 15 to 20%, what will it do for the other players beyond Vodafone? And I ask you this because Bharti Airtel has already gained significantly in terms of stock performance. On anticipation of another tariff hike, as the stock performance predicts, what does an investor do with those stocks?
So my sense is that even at even Airtel, the Bharti Airtel stock at 1,500 was probably factoring in another round of tariff hike, and now the stock has been on a tear, especially in the last 1 month, where it has gone up by nearly 20%. That's a lot of stock price appreciation for a large cap stock for Bharti Airtel. So my sense is that the street is probably now factoring in another 15 to 20% tariff hike, maybe one more year down the line. And so I think so basically we need to have 3 rounds of tariff hike, including the one which was announced in July this year. So, if we have 3 rounds of tariff hike, then we are looking at Airtel probably hitting the 350 rupee mark in terms of ARPU by FY27, FY28. And that would mean that maybe we have another 10% upside from the current stock price levels at Airtel. So my take is that a lot of the positive news is already in the price. Of course, this also has to be looked at from the overall market perspective, where the market itself has broader market itself has rallied quite a bit. And so that also so basically the point I'm trying to make is that the liquidity conditions can also make the stocks can make the stocks rally well ahead of even what the fundamentals would suggest.
Balaji, before we wrap this conversation up, like you said, some of that anticipated good news is already in the price. But for a new investor who wants exposure to the telecom sector, what would your pecking order be?
So the safest bet would be Bharti Airtel and Hexacom, because here there are no conditionalities like if Vodafone Idea raises funds, then the benefit is X percent, Y percent. So for someone who is in there for the longer dig, I would be positive on both Hexacom and then Bharti Airtel. Then Indus also will be a good pick. Actually, it would be a good way to bet on Vodafone's recovery, because even if Vodafone is unable to raise equity funds, the absolute downside after the correction for Indus is not that high. while Vodafone Idea would be a high beta bet. So if there are two more rounds of tariff hike and Vodafone Idea manages to raise debt funding, then the upside can be pretty substantial at about 50% plus. But if some of these scenarios don't pan out the way the company would want to, then the downside also can be substantial.
Okay, Balaji, we leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your take on the entire sector and how investors can, in fact, go about, well, dealing with some of these telecom names.